Lisa Bennet here, Workforce Millionaire. You are at the Truth About Love and Money Summit. And today I am honored to interview Leah Piper. Leah Piper, the founder of More Love Works, is an advanced certified Tantra educator and mentor, happens to be mine, who has blended her work as a certified positive psychology coach into a nervous system where the art of conscious loving merges with the science of well-being. Together, these two complementary models have a positive effect on all relationships, from the boardroom to the bedroom. Leah has facilitated thousands of couples and individuals all over the world through More Love Works, Source School of Tantra Yoga, instructor training courses, and her private practice to wholeheartedly embrace curiosity as a path to flourishing. Thank you so much for being here, Leah. So Leah has been my instructor in Tantra for a couple of years. She is one of the best in the United States. She loves to demonstrate, and she has a way of showing you what she's talking about in a very straightforward and delightful manner so that it's not uncomfortable. And today we're going to talk about the map to your turn on. And I think we're going to start with a woman. Is that right?
Well, I want to kind of show that there's different ways that people open, right? And so I want to help people be a little more perceptive, being able to see and read and feel what is opening their lover to feeling like they want to go deeper or get juicier, versus what are the subtle cues that has them sort of close. So this idea that we can actually start to read how people open and how people close. And then generally speaking, there are methods that you can typically trust. Now we know that everyone's a little different, so that's a little caveat, but by and large, there's a way with which you want to touch the feminine that helps them open. And then there's a way that you can touch the masculine, which then helps them open. And they're a little different. And when I say masculine and feminine, I'm not necessarily talking about gender so much. I'm really talking about how someone presents their energy, sort of the energetics of masculine and the energetics of feminine.
So if I am an alpha woman, do I present with more masculine energy? Does it work that way?
Well, it can. So this is kind of an interesting thing. We're in a really great exploratory time in our culture where we're starting to re-examine gender. And so if you think about it, each human body has qualities of the feminine and the masculine. Yes. And in different areas of our life, we lead with those concepts. So for instance, you and I are probably very comfortable in our working life leading with a lot of masculine energy.
Yes.
However, in the bedroom, we would probably get more pleasure by being invited to step into our feminine.
Yes.
And we're both female identified, gender identified with the feminine. So there's sort of, that all makes sense. And one of the things I want to be mindful of is that not everyone falls into that category just because their genitals are identified as a specific gender.
Yes.
So this is just an invitation for everyone to consider in intimacy, in playing with being sensual. Do I tend to want to be forward with my masculine energy and that gets me hot? Or do I tend to want to soften into my femininity and that gets me hot? You don't necessarily have to have, a penis to be forward feeling in your masculine when it comes to sex. So I'll give you some examples on how the two are different so that when you're with your lover, you can kind of play with it. Do they open when I do this? Or do they open even more when I do that?
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
I know it can sound a little confusing, but giving these examples will give some clarity.
Well, I know that my intention in a sexual interaction can change from day to day as well. There are some days when I really feel like ravishing the guy, and some days when it goes the other way. So it's nice to learn both ways, Leah. Thank you.
Yes, it is. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because we are ever changing, ever evolving, and our flavors and our tastes can change hormonally day by day.
Yeah.
So this is why having a broad menu when it comes to the art of love and the art of sex and the art of intimacy is so important. I really encourage people to study the art of romantic love, because that way your repertoire is vast and you have the intuition to sort of choose a little bit of this, choose a little bit of that. Whatever is presenting itself, you'll know what to do.
I appreciate you enlightening us in a lot of these areas, Leah, because frankly, I came from a family where we didn't learn any of this stuff. I call sex and money sort of twin subjects because we're expected to participate, but we really weren't taught much. So I educate people about money, and I'm bringing in so many people who are educating us about love and eroticism and pleasure and sex to this event. And I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, right on. I love that you're connecting the two.
So where do we start with mapping the woman's turn on?
Okay, so typically, if we're just kind of speaking in generalities right now, there's been this sort of idea, certainly as I was coming of age, growing up sexually, that men were the ones who wanted to do it. So they should just know how to do it. I just remember going, well, it's their job. What, I don't know. I don't really know what I'm doing. They seem to want it so much that we'll let them lead. Was always sort of my mindset on this. No one was out there teaching anything. But then I wondered, like, well, why does not everything they do feel so good? And as I started to explore this, as I become more educated, boys, they don't get an education either. It's not like anyone sits them down and talks about how to pleasure a partner. So what do we do as innocent human beings coming of age is we just do what we like. So if what turns you on and you're starting to self-pleasure for the first time, you're figuring out speed and pressure and rhythm, and you kind of just play with what works for you, and you kind of do it to somebody else and hope that you get a win. Well, when it comes to a lot of the feminine's ability to sort of open and get turned on quickly, it's not going for tits and clits. The attitude is, let's just go to primary erogenosomes, because that's the thing that gets people hot and heavy. Well, not so much.
We haven't seen Ian's interview yet, but Ian will be last in the lineup, and he actually talks about that as an erotic blueprint, the sexual as an erotic blueprint. And it's one of 5, and it's one of many different modalities.
Yeah, the blueprints are so helpful. I'm so glad you've got him on. Y'all are going to love Ian's interview.
Yeah.
And you're going to love the blueprints. I love them. So points for that.
Yes.
Now, when it comes to like wanting to open someone, let's say a woman's body, it's kind of how you hold her hand. Like, that's the first point of turn on. How you hold her hand, how you look into her eyes, how you notice and compliment maybe what she's wearing, or maybe her fabulous earrings. It's this way that you're speaking and you're paying attention. What turns us on is a depth of presence. So when you're really conscientious that you're not just grabbing her hand, but you're actually like holding and feeling, and even maybe sending a thought wave, a feeling like, oh God, you're so beautiful. That message can go right into your hand, into her hand. Also, what's something cool about hand holding is there's an acupressure meridian point at the palm of the hand, which is the heart protector point. So every once in a while, when you just kind of hold someone's hands and you just do a little light pressure, you're not digging it. It's a light, comforting pressure. You're also creating a sense of like, you're physically safe with me. And so you kind of just do like a little caress, right? You don't just keep on doing it. It's just a hello. And then you can hold the hand.
Nice.
And the closeness, like if you're walking down the street, notice there's an attraction that'll happen where pelvises kind of have a gravitational connection to each other. So notice if someone's opening to you, their pelvis is going to have a gravitational pull. They want to get their body next to your body. These are some of the signals to start to tap into. So the other thing, like, let's say you're starting to make out, things are progressing, the ooh la las are turning on. You want to start by caressing the extremities and then going in. If you go straight for the goods, which I call the primary erogenous zones, I hope I'm not being too vulgar. Be straight, y'all. There's primary erogenous zones, which we would describe as like nipples and clitorises and frenulum and cocks and anuses. Like, these are the big primary erogenous zones, sometimes ears also. And then we have the secondary erogenous zones. And a secondary erogenous zone is wherever there's a flexible joint, right? You've got so many flexible joints in your fingers, your elbow, your wrist, the sides of your waist, the inner groin, the knees, the ankles, the toes. All these things are secondary erogenous zones, and they can get turned on and lit up. And if you've got someone who is predominantly feminine in their sexual nature, then working from the extremities in by caressing those secondary erogenous zones, waking up the tingling sensation, even at an inner elbow or the side of the neck, or you caress them down the waist and then you hold the hip, that might be sexier than grabbing their ass to start. Now, there's a place where you may want to, take a handful of the behind, but that would be somewhere a little bit later in the process of turning someone on. So we want to kind of get them heated up. So by the time you do touch primary erogenous zones, they're kind of crawling out of their skin. They cannot wait for you to do more. You've just built up so much anticipation that they're wet and they're juicy, and you kind of want them begging for it. That's, to me, the hottest way to go.
That sounds like a lovely seduction there, Leah. Hey, mentioning the pelvis, that area. I recently had a date with a guy, and he hugged me from behind, and we were looking out at the ocean, and he's a horseman. And I felt him move his energy into his pelvis. It was the most fascinating thing. I went, whoa, do you know that you just did that? Like, does this happen all the time? It's because you ride horses, right? So it was fascinating. I could actually feel his energy go straight down his body and just settle in his pelvis. Like, this is now where he moves from. It was very juicy. Yeah, it was awesome.
I mean, I imagine like how grounding that is too.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to feel sort of secure, but titillated. We want to feel safe, but we want to be turned on. And so we're kind of playing with those elements. Now, let's say someone was feeling into their pelvis and they started to kind of just lean in to somebody, like they're standing behind them. And that person, instead of relaxing in, gets a little rigid, right? One of the things that you can kind of notice is this working for someone else's body is really pay attention to the body language. When someone feels like a potential lover is moving in too fast for their nervous system, they're going to clench. Something's going to tighten. You might see them tighten first in their neck. Their face might get a little tense. They usually clench their butt. So their buttocks will kind of contract. I was going to tell a joke, but I'm going to skip that. I just want people to just notice when someone's tightening, they're uncomfortable. And you just want to pull back just a little bit, give their body a little bit of space. And then now don't shut down. Here's the thing that often happens when someone gets a reaction that what they tried didn't really work. They often shut down and get insecure, and they pull too far back. You want to maintain your confidence. It's okay to make a little mistake. It's okay for someone to not be quite ready to go as fast as you are. You pull in your energy. So imagine that you stay right where you are, but you pull in your energy and you back it up, you back it up, you back it up. So you're all the way in your space. And that way that gives someone else more space around their body so that they can fully come in and move forward. Let me paint a picture of that so that's a little more clear. There would be times when I would be with even a long-term lover, long-term relationship, where my partner at the time would come after me, right? Like they're in the mood and they're looking to find me. And I need a little bit more time being on the same page. So what would feel like is they would come after me and they'd be touching me and trying to turn me on. And I'm trying to respond and show up for more intimacy in the partnership. But I would notice that I was kind of backing up a little bit. I'd had these little flinches. And what I learned, and I had to figure out how to communicate, babe, I love what you're doing. Keep touching me just like that. But would you imagine that you can pull some of your energy like out up your hand? So let's say they're touching my breast. You can keep touching my breast, but it feels like your energy is going into me, like you're looking for me. Like, where is she? Where is she? I want more of her. I want more of her. And I'm backing up and backing up and backing up because their energy is too far in and I can't find myself.
Wow.
So what I would say is, imagine, keep your hand right here, but imagine that you can be a magnet with your energy. So pull all your energy all the way up into your shoulder and imagine that there's a magnet right there. And that magnet is saying, come on, baby, come on down, meet me right here. I love you. I love you. Get juicy, get juicy. What that does is their energy isn't looking for me anymore, trying to go, where is she? Where is she? Instead, it's saying, come on, come and join me. Come and join me. What that does for me is now I get to occupy all of my space. And now I can bring my turn on because I'm now fully present. I'm fully there. I'm not backing up. I'm coming in more fully, more fully, more fully. And now I can lean into the touch that's at my breast. I'm not backing up from it. I can now lean in. And so notice the difference. Here, I'm kind of backing up. I'm maneuvering a little bit. Whereas if I'm enjoying it and I get to be in all of my space, then I lean in and I arch and I open. And I'll probably continue arching and opening and expressing the opening of my body, which are all cues. It's like, follow the opening. Oh, now you want my hand to go here. Oh, okay. Lift up that hip. Ooh, okay. Oh, lift up that butt. Oh, you want even more. So you want to watch like the arches, the openings, the size.
We do that a lot in Tantra. We learn how to express ourselves with our voices and our sounds in Tantra because so many of us are so quiet and we haven't learned how to do that. It wasn't encouraged. It wasn't taught. We don't, maybe we're embarrassed. That's been a wonderful thing to learn actually with you, Leah, how to express myself vocally.
Yeah. And you know, this is such a huge gift you can give your lover. If you like what they're doing and it is working for you, give them a or a oh or you know, like find a grunt, find a moan, give a deep sigh. These are the nonverbal cues of approval that shows your partner, I like what you're doing, keep doing it.
Yeah, and that goes for the men, not just the women. It goes for both sides because then we know what's working.
Yeah, and just everyone who's watching this right now, think about doesn't it feel good when your lover is making the sounds of yumminess, like they're really enjoying themselves? Doesn't that make you even hotter? You want it even more? And it just amps up the arousal when someone is vocalizing. Now, if someone's being super obnoxious and they're vocalizing, that can be a little distracting. So you want to make sure that the sounds are organic and that they feel natural, but you got to push yourself in that direction. Because a lot of people, they feel shy or a little uncomfortable about making sound. And so this is something that we all have to start practicing. You get better at it and it becomes more and more natural the more you do it.
Right. Yeah, it's been very helpful. And your comments about the energy that when you're touching someone, people can also have gone through trauma. So when you're coming at them with the grabby energy, that can actually bring back their past traumas. And I learned just recently that I have trauma against around someone grabbing or slapping my butt. And I did not realize until a few weeks ago, Leah, it's because I was beaten as a child on my butt quite a bit. And I always felt like it was an invasion of my personal territory. So when someone does that to me without a lot of permission, I get pissed. Like I actually see red. I am mad because I've just been attacked.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I've had a sort of a similar experience. There's a certain type of a love pat or the love spank that I like, and that's really specific. And anything that stings is very unpleasant for me. Well, I've got a girlfriend, give her all the sting. She loves the bite of a good spank.
Yeah.
And so we're not mind readers as people getting to learn how to love with one another, especially new partners. This is why it's so important that we are in inquiry within our own bodies and that we go on our personal journey to learn about what opens me, what turns me on, what helps my body do one of these, and what's happening when I do one of these. And really start to be self-reflective on your own opening and your own closing. We want to be able to learn our personal map. I am so grateful to myself for having played with learning what's Leah's map and then learning how to communicate that to a partner, because when they have a map of how you like to be touched and turned on, they're going to win with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to win because someone else is winning. It's like a win-win.
Yes.
When we're silent or we stay sort of shut down or we allow our shame to override our curiosity about our sexual, unfolding, nobody wins.
Yeah.
When we take sex too seriously, nobody wins. Then it becomes this high stakes situation where sex becomes work and it becomes fraught with insecurities and uncertainties. And that's just not good for partnership. What we want to do is be able to communicate easily, know our own bodies, and then have fun and be playful. And we get serious as adults. So I just think we all deserve the chance to learn and grow more and more and more about sensuality, because it's this huge gift that we've been given in our bodies. The soul gets really weary. We go through some crap. We've got people go through bankruptcy and they've got car accidents and family members get cancer. And there's all this yucky depression and all this stuff that really sucks. And because our soul gets weary, it makes life not always feel so beautiful.
Yeah.
But there's pleasure. And pleasure, I believe, has been built into the body so that we can renew that part of the soul that gets tired. And so it's so important that we live thinking of life being pleasure forward, that we allow pleasure to be a vital part of our nutrient dense lifestyle, that it's good for our hormones and it's really good for our immune system. And studies show that people who have pleasure in their life live longer.
Right.
And so this is an invitation for people to take a deep dive.
So what do you do if your desire for sex has disappeared? How do you start mapping yourself back into your pleasure again, Leah?
Yeah, it starts with curiosity. And the key to, let me just say, it starts with noticing your judgments. Because what we do is like, oh, I'm numb. Oh, I can't get turned on. There's something wrong. And so we start judging and making something bad is happening. And what I would invite people to do is to replace their judgment with curiosity. Wow, that's really interesting that I felt a little shut down lately. Wow, that's really interesting that I'm kind of numb and I'm having a hard time reaching climax. I really wonder what would help. When you can shift judgment to curiosity, then doors begin to open. And there's a couple other things. One is we go through these different stages. And I actually learned this from the Blueprint, the erotic Blueprint team. They talk about that we have a resting stage, We have an adventurous stage, we have a learning stage, we have a healing stage, and we have a transcendent stage when it comes to our sexuality. And we weave in and out of these stages our whole life. Sometimes we're going through more than one stage at a time. So when we're in a resting stage and turn on isn't the total focus of our life in that moment, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to not feel sexual for a moment, for a chapter, for whatever time you need. You can
still get
trust
touch.
that
You
you're
can
going to
still
move
get
out of that
hugs.
stage.
You can still get touch and hugs and yeah, embrace, kisses. You can spend time holding hands or whatever still feels good at that point. Yeah, it can happen when there's trauma in your life too.
You can also choose to look at the other stages and go, what inspires me about that stage? If I'm in a resting stage right now and I'm not feeling really into it, well, I wonder what it would be like if I was to shift into a healing stage. Maybe what I need is a little bit of healing, or gee, I wonder if it's just because I'm bored. Maybe it's time for an adventure. What don't I know about sex? Maybe it's time to read a book or watch some YouTube or ask a friend what they do when things get a little stagnant. So this is where we can be empowered to create the type of sex that we want.
I love that.
Yeah. So one of the things I know we were going to talk about a little bit is also understanding the parts of our body. So for instance, there's been some really great science that has finally come to mainstream work around women's pleasure. There's been a lot of funding over the past many decades towards men's reproductive health and not as much money towards women's reproductive health. But I think some of that has changed in the last 10 years. And as a result, we're starting to understand how erectile tissue works within a woman's genitals in ways that we never knew before. I mean, this is stuff that my mom didn't grow up learning. Therefore, no one told me until about 8 years ago. That's because it wasn't in the medical texts.
No.
And it wasn't a part of sex education until recently. And I think this is the type of information that can really change how women become even more orgasmic. Yes. And feel even more connected to their pleasure.
Yes.
One thing it's important for both, for everyone to understand is that your brain is the biggest sex organ.
Yes.
It's the thing that's telling you, honey, something special's happening. Are you paying attention? This feels really good. We want the signals that go from the arousal up to the brain, and then the brain sends the signals back down. Woo! More. This can get even more intense and more fun. And in order to do that, our brain has to be focused. We have to be present. We actually have to choose to be in our body and to be paying attention to what's the sensation that I'm feeling and where am I sensing it. So that's the first line of settling in order to increase having more pleasure in your body. One of the ways to do that in the most effective way is to slow down your breathing. When you slow down your breathing and you expand the length of your inhale and the length of your exhale, you are actually calming the adrenal glands. Belly breathing helps calm the adrenals so that you're not pumping as much cortisol. Therefore, you're able to relax. When you're able to feel more relaxed, the pleasure can start to build. So first and foremost, slow your breath and come into the present moment. Those of you who have a meditation practice, you're already ahead of the game. Step into a meditative frame of mind. Next, you want to think about, the brain is sending all these signals, right? We've got these circuits that we want to start getting linked up. We want to increase our circuitry between the brain and all the sexy bits. When our brain is communicating powerfully with all this yumminess, then of course the signals are going to get stronger. What tends to happen is the signals get crossed. And what a lot, and I see this especially with women, is they often can't feel a lot of sensation. There can be a lot of numbness, and that's because the signals are a little crossed. Their body is actually responding correctly to arousal, but the arousal isn't getting to the brain that says, ooh, sexy. So you want to be managing what are the thoughts that are happening. Are a lot of my thoughts judgment thoughts? Let me see if I can be more curious, and then change the negative thoughts to curiosity thoughts. That's really helpful. And now be aware of blood flow. Women have just as much erectile tissue, ounce for ounce and inch for inch, as men. So think about an aroused male genitals, right? Everyone got a visual for that? You guys see
Yes.
that in your mind's eye?
I got that.
All right. Now,
you're so cute.
Imagine that a woman has that too. That bigness, that fullness, that throbbing, that penetrative ooh la la. We've got that as well. Ours is just more dispersed.
Oh, how pretty.
So this is my little vulva puppet. Hello, everyone. She's like, hello. Now, one of the things to know about the vulva is that the vulva and the vagina are two different things. So we want to just kind of have our terms correct. Growing up, I was taught that this was a vagina. Now, the vagina is what's inside. This here on the outside, the labia, the clitoris, this is the vulva. All right. So now we have our terms correct. Now we have erectile tissue. Most of it is on the outside of the vulva. However, some of it is also inside the vagina. The places that we're most familiar with are the head of the clitoris, right? So most of us think of the clitoris as just being that little bead. Well, the clitoris is so much more. In fact, some of you are probably starting to see this image all over the internet. This is what the clitoris actually is. This is how big it is. So we have not just the head, but we also have a shaft, right? If I were to pinch this whole area, that's all the shaft. We have the hood that is also has erectile cells to it. Then we have the clitoral legs that kind of start up here, and they're like a wishbone, and they come all the way underground, almost right to the introitus. And the introitus is the opening of the vagina. Then we have some of my favorite places are the vestibular bulbs. And you'll find the vestibular bulbs, they're like little tear-shaped glands that are on either side, again, of the introitus, underneath the labia majora and the labia minora. So if we were to look at this model, you have the head, you have the shaft, you have the clitoral legs, and you have the vestibular bulbs.
Got it.
One of the things I highly, highly, highly suggest, and I do these practicums in my workshops and programs, is I really encourage women to take a look at their vulva when it's unaroused. This is what it looks like when I'm just hanging out all day long, unaroused vulva. And then take some lovely high food grade quality coconut oil and then start to massage the outside of the vulva, anywhere that feels good. You know, notice what feels good, what type of speed feels good, what type of pressure feels good, and what are the zones that feel good. What you'll notice by and large, and this is for anyone who likes to make love to a woman, pay attention, okay? Now, when you are wanting to turn this lovely vulva on, you might want to caress the sides of the clitoris. In the beginning, a lot of clitorises don't necessarily want direct stimulation. Some do, but typically we want subtle indirect stimulation until it warms up, and then we want more direct stimulation. And you want to pay attention to these vestibular bulbs underneath the labia. What I love about these bulbs is they swell. They actually make the introitus, the opening of the vagina, thicken. So that when the pressure of something going in and coming out, going in and coming out, feels even better, because the swelling of the vestibular bulbs have increased to kind of make that a little bit tighter, and it makes it yummier for everyone. So what you want to do is, let's say you massage, you know, think about playing with the outside of the vulva for like 5 minutes, and then look and see how the vulva has changed. You will notice that it will darken in color and it will thicken. Now, for those of you, for women who are watching, do this to yourself. don't worry about if it feels sexy or not. Even if it never gets sexy for you, that's okay. The vulva will still respond. And that's what's important for your brain to see. When your brain can see that arousal is working, my body does respond, it starts to help strengthen that neural pathway. That way, as you become more and more knowledgeable about how your body responds and works, when you don't have a mirror and you're starting to feel like things are feeling good, you already have a visual of how your vulva is getting juicier and thicker and fuller and darker. And that can help you go, things are good. So I call this yoni witnessing. Massage 5 minutes, take a peek in the mirror, massage another 5 minutes, take another peek in the mirror, massage another 5 minutes, and keep looking at the difference of how your yoni, that's the name in Tantra for the female genitals, continues to swell, open, and expand. You'll really get off on the fact that this is a total flower. It starts off kind of closed and shy and protective. And then with touch, it opens and opens and opens and opens. And even if you're more like the shy type, regardless of your personality, I am here to tell you that every single vulva likes attention. Every single vulva likes to be complimented, likes to be praised, likes to be worshiped, likes to be talked to, and just adores and thrives with attention. All of this is to also caution not to rush penetration.
Yeah.
If you want to have what people describe as vaginal orgasms, which are different from clitoral orgasms,
Yes.
we have to eradicate what is known as premature penetration. Premature penetration is something we are all guilty of. We all just want to rush in. And what happens when we just rush in and we don't properly juice up the erectile tissue of the vulva, it makes it a lot harder to have internal orgasmic sensation. The more we juice this up and bring blood into the vulva and into all this erotic tissue, the more blood is going to be circulating on the inside, the more aroused the G-spot will become, and the more comfortable internal sex will be, and the more orgasmic penetrative sex will be. Most women have never had an orgasm during intercourse.
Most?
And that can be
most?
reversed. Most.
Over 50%?
85%. 85% of women do not have an orgasm and penetrative sex only on the outside.
Oh.
So if there's stimulation to their clitoris while they're being penetrated, they can have an orgasm. But what most women are not experiencing are the orgasms that link up from the inside. So the orgasm that runs from the clitoris to the brain is the pudendal nerve. The orgasm that runs from the G-spot to the brain is the pelvic nerve. Two very different types of orgasm. The other types of orgasms that, again, have a different flavor from all the others is the one that carries orgasm through the vagus nerve and the one that gets stimulated by stimulating the hypogastric nerve. I mean, who knew this stuff? We've got 4 different nerves that we know of so far, and I'm sure there's probably more, that all create orgasmic sensation in the body and need to be stimulated in different zones. So picture this. We got the pudendal nerve firing. We got the pelvic nerve firing. We decide to be courageous and open up the sound of pleasure. Now we got the vagus nerve firing. And if we like a little bit of sexy sensation to some other zones and the nether regions, we can then add the hypogastric nerve. That's like eating a 4-layer chocolate orgasmic cake. When most of us are just used to like a 1-layer cake without frosting.
You know, there was a question I always had. What about eargasms? Like, how do they fit into your nerve map?
Okay. So like I said about secondary erogenosomes.
Yeah.
Well, first, let's be clear. All orgasm is energy and movement. People think that you can only have an orgasm with genitals. Not so, not so, my friend. We are so orgasmic throughout our body. We just have to start expanding our view of what orgasm feels like. A good, a good laugh. I mean, a belly laugh that has you having tears roll down your face, that can be orgasmic, right? Sometimes a good dessert is so good, it can be orgasmic. And it's probably because we're activating the vagus nerve with all those yummy sounds. So when I said that we have these secondary erogenous zones, like in the ears, behind the ears, the fingers, the hands, the armpits, I can have armpit gasms. Heck, I can have a handgasm. I love having an eargasm. You can have a headgasm with someone just scratching your head and taking you beyond. So it's about being energetically sensitive and allowing the movement of energy to turn you on. Now, what's the opposite to the movement of energy? That would be stuck energy. And what is stuck energy? Pain. My bad back, my bad knee. It's when energy gets stuck and it crystallizes and then it aches and it hurts or it throbs. Where when the energy moves, like when a chiropractor adjusts stuck energy in your back, which would represent that knot in your underneath your shoulder blade, and then they move that, oh man, does that feel good, because the energy's moved.
Yeah.
So a good cry can be orgasmic, you know, a good poop can be orgasmic. There's a way with which we can actually have more pleasure when we consider a lot of things feel really, really good. And those can then be amplified by the depth of our presence, our ability to breathe and take it in, and our willingness to make sound and deeply enjoy it, which I would call sort of the art of savoring. And something that's really neat about savoring is that you can savor things from the past that have been wonderful. So think of a wonderful orgasmic memory. Think about a date that was just so special and touched you. Think about a moment in nature that took your breath away. Think about a trip that will stay with you for a lifetime. You know, these are things in the past that we can revisit and experience all the yummies again. Then we have savoring the present moment, like that delicious orgasmic piece of cake. And then there are things in the future that we know are coming that we can also savor. And so being good at savoring, which is invoking all of the senses, is a great way to learn how to be more orgasmic.
I love that. And to me, what is implied in all of this is that you're getting out of your head and allowing yourself to be fully embodied, to have your best pleasure experiences. Get out of your head. And so many people who are probably watching this are really hard workers, and they keep having work spin around in their head. So the first thing, because you started with breathing, right? The first thing is to get out of your head and experience your body. And now you get to figure out how you turn on. Yes, yeah. Wonderful. Thank you. And how about briefly, just really briefly, what about the man's turn on? It's different.
So for the masculine turn on, and like I said, this can be true for women too, during different moments in our cycle where we want, and our male counterpoints may want, direct primary Jones. Don't try massaging my arm and taking all this time to get into the goods. Just go straight to the goods. You know, you can't go straight to the wand. We call it a lingam, the male genitals in Tantra, and it translates to wand of light or wand of God. You can go straight to the genitals and bring love and pleasure and sensitivity. You can maybe go a little quicker into how you're kissing and make it more passionate a little bit faster. So understanding what turns our partner on, do they need more yang? If you think of like yin and yang, or yin and yang would be the super active energy. So that's going to be faster touch. It's going to be more pressure. It's going to be more active. You're going to be really sending and being very obvious about your passion, right? And ravishment. These would all be more of a masculine or a yang or yang energetic in how you approach touch and getting somebody juiced up. Then we have the yin approach, and the yin would represent more of the feminine. It's more magnetic. It draws you in. It like soft, subtle, slow.
Like Marilyn Monroe.
Pressure, like Marilyn Monroe. Oh, perfect example of yin.
Yeah.
So, these are really fun questions to ask a new partner.
Yeah.
What does turn you on? Do you like it to be passionate right away, or do you like a slow build? What do you think about anticipation, and how do you build sexual tension? Like, what really works for you? And if you don't know the answer, then you can explore.
Yeah.
And you can experiment and
And
be like two kids.
curiosity is number one. Curiosity will help you get to other places. Yes. Wonderful tip.
Indeed.
Thank you, Leah. You are so good. I always love listening to you. It feels like every time Leah talks, I need to take notes.
Well, thankfully there will be a replay, maybe.
Yes,
Those of you who are doing the VIP,
yeah.
sign up for the VIP thing so that this can stay in your library. And I actually really encourage people, when they're dating someone new, watch videos like these together. It's a great conversation starter.
That is a great idea, Leah. That's a great idea. So let me show everyone what you have that is for our audience today and how to reach you. She's an amazing tantrika. She can be found at moreloveworks.com. She's on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and her email is leah@moreloveseminars.com. And her gift to you, which I watched, which is absolutely spot on. And I think men and women both need to know this, but men and women both need to know this. You want to talk a little bit about it?
Yes, there is this common tragic mistake that women make when they're getting close to a clitoral orgasm. And I have figured out what this mistake is through a lot of trial and error. And and it's so simple. I have the cure so that you never miss another clitoral orgasm again. And for those of you watching, it's that feeling where you're so close. Like, you're so close, you can feel that your climax is just right there. You're almost to the door. And then suddenly it's gone. And you're like, what the? I'm so close. I'll share with you in that video what we do and how to correct it.
Yep.
Because if you think about the tragedy of all the missed clitoral orgasms that have happened spanning the globe for all these eons and eons and eons, and where it's just because of one little simple thing we do, you will be shocked and then you'll be thrilled. And then I want you to tell every woman and man who likes to make love to a woman, tell them the secret.
Yep.
So we can all just have more pleasure.
Yep. It's easy. We
so
can all
get
do
that
it.
video on my website.
Yes. It's
easy. And I'm happy to have offer a free consultation for anyone who's considering coaching, and we can see if we're a good fit. You can find all that information on the website.
Awesome. All right. So she's given us a beautiful video that's going to help you never miss another clitoral orgasm and a free coaching session. So thank you, Leah. Thank you for the heart and the delight that you bring to this subject. You have made a huge difference in my life, for one, and for many, many people's lives. I do appreciate your work. Thank you so much. Thank you for agreeing to come. And so everyone, this is the end of this interview, and please make sure you come to the rest. And Ian is going to be our last interview for this summit. So make sure you get your VIP package so you can see all of the interviews after. And Ian is last up, and he will be talking about the erotic blueprints that we mentioned earlier. So a lot of this work builds on the work of other people and the knowledge that is being gained over time about how we are pleasure centers. So thank you, Leah.
Wealth to everybody.
Yes.